Hello and welcome to the How of High Performance. Today I am beyond thrilled to have the one and only Mr. Pete Markey on the show as a guest. I've been looking forward to our conversation greatly. Pete is the former CMO of Boots and president of ISBAR. Pete, welcome.
Thank you, Sally. Great to be with you.
So Pete, whenever I start these conversations, I think it's always nice for people to give a little bit of context of your career, just so we can understand where does your leadership lessons and your great perspectives around high performance, high stakes, etc., where has it come from? So could you give us just a top line run through of the amazing career you've had to date?
No, happy to, Sally. Well, I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing people on some amazing brands over the past 30 years. So I started my career in British Gas. That was owned by a holding company, Centrica, and I worked my way through different brands there. The AA, telecoms brand called OneTel, was amazing, cool, up-and-coming brand. Then found my way into financial services with more than an RSA. A stint at the post office, went into sort of a tech innovation hub within Aviva, and then found myself into the great, exciting world of community banking with TSB, and most recently in retail with Boots. Throughout that, every brief I've done has been about new experiences, coming into new sectors, driving change and transformation, leading great high-performing teams, and driving results and performance. So I've been lucky enough to work on those amazing brands, but importantly, it's the people that have made it, and they've been a big part of the journey.
So that's why I was so excited to be able to ask you these questions, because I think there'll be a plethora of information you could go to answer me. But in a very simple layman's way, how, Pete, would you define what are high stakes?
I think high stakes are things where you've got some form of burning platform around you. There's something that you can't walk past. It's something really important, and it forces a choice. I think the stakes are high that either you personally need to act on something, or an organization you're in needs to act on something, and it involves, I guess, a personal cost that you need to step above and beyond, or do something that stretches you or the organization further. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a big risk behind it, but it means that there's a lot riding on it. A lot matters behind that decision. And I think it's therefore something that stretches you and develops you a lot as well in the process.
Nice. Yeah, I'd say from my experience, I really agree with that. That stretch and develop. I think it's all about your mindset, isn't it? Whether that's a great experience or slightly terrifying.
Absolutely, yeah. And I hope it's definitely the former, because it's but you're right, these moments are pressurized, and I think they're the moments that test you and develop character, which is why they're so important in life. Hey, life would be dull without them, wouldn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. So given that incredible career history you've had, and I know all the amazing work you've recently done with Boots, is there one particular moment that stands out from you? Could be very recently, could be earlier in your career, where you've had to navigate through those high stakes moments. And can you just bring that to life for us? And particularly the practical steps you took around how you successfully navigated through.
Yeah, happy to. I've got probably too many examples we can fit in on this conversation.
Sure.
But let me use a Boots one. So as context, I came into Boots in 2021 and arrived at a moment when we were just starting to come out of the sort of second wave of lockdown. The business was underperforming. The brand was tired and not seen as relevant. And I came in and pitched for more marketing investment and to, in effect, relaunch the brand and bring it back after COVID with a bold new offering and message. And so it was high stakes because the business was not on a trajectory of growth. The business had sort of spluttered and struggled through COVID because so many of the shops were shut. And marketing was not seen in the business as an investment or a good investment under sort of previous regimes. So the high stakes were, this was me new in a job, having to literally stick my money where my mouth is and say, if we can put something together and develop a campaign, a concept, a proposition, and take it to market with more investment, I think it's going to work. But clearly, if it didn't, that would have been slightly interesting, given I was probably less than 6 months into the organization. So the process I went through, the other part of your question, is to first of all work with the finance team to build a very close relationship with finance around what I was looking to do, why the investment mattered, what return I'd expect to get, and then work to galvanize the business around the sort of core proposition and message. And at the time, we were emerging from lockdown, so the message was like we'd lived in tracksuit bottoms, and beauty regimes were quite hard to get. And finally, we were out again. We could go on dog walks, and we could see people, and we could feel good as new again. And that really galvanized. So in fact, I got the finance buy-in, I got the business buy-in to a kind of philosophy of this feeling good as new and us helping people get back out there again, and then develop offers and promotions and everything around it, and galvanized and drove the business. And the results were phenomenal, so much so that we were given more marketing budget, and the marketing budget when I left was over 30% higher than when I walked in, as a result of us building the business's confidence. But it was high stakes because the business had sort of fallen out of love with marketing as a discipline before I came in, and yeah, it would feel like almost counterintuitive. If a business has before underperformed, had a difficult period through a COVID lockdown, to go in and say we want to invest more, when at that time 4 years ago most businesses were sort of hiding away, going, well, let's just batten down the hatches and ride through this and come out later on. Whereas I want us to come out, excuse the phrase, but all guns blazing, going, we're back and here we are. So high stakes, but definitely rewarding, and it set the tone for the rest of my tenure at Boots around continuing to push and be more ambitious, to push the brand and push what we do further. Yeah, and that led to high stakes. We did the first big Christmas campaign in a long while when I was there as well. We hadn't done a proper big Christmas campaign for a while. That worked really well. But again, I had to pitch for more money again, a pitch for investment, and pitch to use a celebrity with Jenna Coleman. So yeah, I guess particularly those early stages, it was high stakes throughout, because when you're in a business that has not performed as well as it wants to, the stakes have to be high, because the only way I think you're going to get to better results is to push the envelope and push harder and go for it.
And how did you get the rest of the C-suite's buy-in? Because obviously you're one of them, but it's not your sole decision. And I think it's brilliant, that practical focus on let's get finance to really know why this matters. Yeah. But I'm just interested as well how you got their fellow stakeholders, and particularly CEO, to say, actually going to back this, because it's not just your reputation doing something like that, it's also theirs, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. It's a very good point. So, but that's what I mean. I think we start by it's classic negotiation influencer thing. Is who are the people you need to really influence in the room? So my view is if I can work with a CFO, who's a brilliant guy called Michael, and he and I together can form a cooperative of sort of, we believe in this, then to take it to the business when you've got marketing and finance aligned, half of the job is sort of done, I think. Then it's how do you bring the other teams with you on the journey? And so that's the approach we took. So I think that's a bit, because the danger with this, you're right, is you sort of think, golly, I've got to influence like 6 to 8 people. I don't think you do. You start with, actually, if at least you've got 2 voices in the room and they're united, and they're the 2 most important voices, or the 3 most important voices, that I think is exciting bit, because then you go, right, if I can therefore do something with that. So that's the approach we took. And actually, that then formed a really strong bond between me and the finance team that continued till I left, because finance is a hugely accountable, like an open book marketing team where anyone can come in and see what we're doing. They can see what we're measuring. They can see how we're performing. And it just builds trust, and trust builds trust. And therefore people go, God, I've trusted you with this much money and you've made this return. Can I give you more? Can we, so a conversation I remember with Michael, the CFO, was when this was coming into almost the second year I was there. And he said to me, Pete, what you're doing in the teams is working so well. What would you do if I gave you £1 million more? Now, you don't have those conversations with the finance director very often, but for him to say that was like, you are a good investment, and that for me was the testament to the high stakes, and why it's worth doing is when you have those conversations, you're winning, and the business is winning.
Amazing. So business is one thing, isn't it? But we're not business people. We are also humans. It's not just who, as part of our identity. It's not just the thing. And I'm very passionate that high stakes doesn't just exist in work. It really does exist in life as well. And part of doing this podcast, part of doing the book, is to also talk to people who have navigated very high stakes situations very publicly at work, but also ask if you're happy to share any high stakes situations from life that you have navigated as Pete. So not necessarily, anything to do with being a CMO, just Pete. Any situation that you're happy to share with us. And again, the emphasis on the practical steps you took to get through.
Yeah, happy to. It has a slight overlap with work. It's so those sort of listening in will probably know that I am learning improvised comedy. I've been learning improvised comedy for about 6 years now. Just to be really clear, it's not stand-up comedy. So I don't have a set routine. It's all made up. You're always with other people. And I fell in love with it. I didn't do it for any other reason than I thought it'd be an amazing hobby, an amazing way to challenge myself. But I had this brainwave at the end of 2019 of going, you know what? I'm enjoying this so much. What if for charity, I got 9 other marketing directors, 9 other CMOs, and 10 of us did a 6-week crash course in improv comedy? And what if we all learned it? And what if we then put a show on to raise money for comic relief? And then what we learned with other improvisers, what we got taught by the person that taught me. And we did all that. We did it. So cutting a long story short, we did the course for 6 weeks. We put on a show for comment, and we raised £30,000 for Comic Relief in March 2020. And the learning experience was amazing. Now, when I tell you that story, your reaction is lovely. It's wow. But your question is more important. It's what was the process? Flipping hard work. And I nearly used a naughty word there. It was hard work.
You can, Pete. You can.
Okay, yeah. Well, flipping hard work, but it's effing hard work. But the reason it was I first of all, I had to recruit 9 of the CMOs, none of whom really knew what improv comedy was like. I didn't know all of them. And I remember when I first sent the message out through the Marketing Academy about wanting to get CMOs involved. And it started with like one person, 2. And I genuinely thought, flipping out, there's only going to be 2 of us, like 3 of us, and it's just not going to work and it's going to fall flat. And then it gradually started to sort of snowball and more people came on board. One person dropped out. They recommended someone else to come in. And then when the lesson started, there was this amazing effect. I remember, because again, these CMOs didn't all know each other, right? So you do the first lesson, and we did it at the old McCann offices near King's Cross, and the lessons on a Monday or Tuesday night, I think. And it was an amazing bonding experience, because the great thing with improv is you don't need to you don't need to be funny. You naturally think you're funny because you will just be funny by creating stuff. And actually, it's a great way to get to know people. So I remember walking to the station with 2 people who'd never met before, who walked away and said, I literally feel like I've known you for years. This is after lesson 1. It had an amazing sort of healing effect for people around. They were able to take skills they taught, like going home and having better conversations with their wife, partner, children as a result, because it gave them new skills to take back. And importantly, the show was a big success, but it was hard work. It was hard getting people on board. And then it was very hard getting, I had to get sponsors with other people. I had to then organize the logistics. So I had to find a venue for the show, find a way to sell tickets, sort insurance for the venue, sort things like who was going to do the PA for the event, who was going to take people's coats, could we have a bar there? And all that sounds like quite funny, but I think like, this was just me. And look, the 9, I told you, and I was at TSB at the time, and the 9 people who involved me were really helpful, but it was sort of my vision, so it's quite hard to sort of go, well, you deal with the drinks and you deal with that. So I literally reached the point where I had amazingly some agencies helped out. Oliver did the content. One of the VCCP helped us with the venue. I was so grateful. And then there's an events company I worked with at TSB, and they did all the logistics, and which was so helpful, because just taking coats and booking people in. And so it was an outstanding success. And actually, the funny bit was there's a guy who worked for me at the time, and he turned up with someone I know from the agency world. And he said after, he said, that was brilliant. So we turned up expecting it to be rubbish, because we didn't know what to expect, but it was actually really good. And I thought, I don't know whether is that a kind of backhanded compliment? I don't know. But it was, so back to high stakes is in effect with that, I put my name and reputation, I guess, to a degree, on the line in a professional capacity to do something in a personal capacity for good. And actually, you're right. Actually, I think about it now. The show could have been rubbish, but I did everything. So what did I do? First of all, I made sure everyone was really committed. I made sure we were trained by someone who just does this brilliantly. So it wasn't me training people; it was a brilliant coach and trainer. And what I did is I integrated well-trained influencers into the training with us. So the 10 of us were learning always with 3 or 4 people who'd been doing improv for years. And that added this really great dynamic of actually the buffer was always, so that's an awful thing to say, is if we weren't funny, at least I knew they would be. And actually I knew they could create funny. And actually the bonding was, by the time we got to the show, you couldn't tell the difference between those that had done it for years and those that had only learned a few weeks ago. So it was an amazing experience, and it was only COVID, reference COVID earlier on. COVID put a hot stop to it, because I think we did the show, and 2 weeks later we were in lockdown. And actually, I just haven't had the time or opportunity to do it again. But it's on my bucket list of something I'd love to do, another show like that, because of how good it was. But I guess the punchline is, but someone else can do the admin next time. So if someone came to me and said, Pete, I want to do this thing, all you need to do is turn up and do the lessons, and I'll do everything else. Literally, I'd sign up tomorrow. Sally, I'll be straight in there. But I just know if I commit to do it, and I've come close twice to doing it, is the bit that always gets me down is about, oh golly, all that admin I just haven't got the bandwidth to do that. Yeah. So anyway, look, but I'd love to do it. Amazing experience, high stakes, but lots of fun and very rewarding, and importantly, 30 grand for Comic Relief. So brilliant.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you took a risk. You stretched yourself beyond what was already very stretchy, I'd imagine, given the job you were doing at the time. But you had this magic touch to get trust in the room, trust and accountability.
Yeah, that was the big bit, I think, because Yeah, and it needed that actually, and also you're right. People to trust and buy into you because actually you're right. It wasn't just high stakes for me. And 9 other CMOs who knew they could sort of fall flat on their face potentially. It almost like if we failed, we'd all fail together. If we succeeded, we all succeed together. So very high stakes, very high stakes. Yeah.
Fascinating. That's a really I think that's the most creative one I've had from Life Side. So
Okay.
thank you very
There you
much
go.
for sharing that.
It's all right.
So looking at your whole career again, knowing that it's very rich and diverse, so there's a plethora, that word again, for you to pick from. But I would be fascinated now to dig into the lessons from high stakes.
Yes.
High stakes that have gone brilliantly. Sometimes high stakes don't go, but that's your learning, isn't it? They don't always work out as intended in life and in work. Could you please consolidate your rich experience as a C-suite leader for other C-suite leaders, the lessons that you would share? And I'd like this on sort of 2 different lenses, if I may. First lens as Pete Markey, the leader in your own brain and heart. Like, what lessons have you got for your own self as a high performance leader in high stakes? But then I'd also love any key lessons for leading teams through high stakes.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think for me, at any high stakes stuff, it starts with a sort of what I guess obvious, but why are we doing this? So I guess come back to the Boots example. We were doing it because we really needed to grow, and we need the business to do really really well again. So I think the sort of sense of what's our alternative is we can keep the status quo going, but we won't see the growth or ambition. And I do think that's a really important point. Is why are we doing this? Why is it important? What's there to be gained? What's the upside? And managing the risk really tight. I think all done through really good communication. But it's almost like creating almost like a pitch platform, sort of like this is why we're doing it. This is generally we go on. Give everyone a clear role and responsibility. Manage all the risks along the way as you go, and then also think critically with the boots thing. And also, I guess to a degree, it's measuring all of it as well. So sort of we're going to go on a journey. This is what we want to achieve. This is how we're going to measure it. This is what success looks like. This is what the risks are. Manage the risks. This is the role you can all play. But this is sort of energy, the burning platform, the reality of what we need to do. And if I look at the comic relief one, the improv bit, the bit that galvanized us there was the common cause, and it was the Marketing Academy's 10th birthday, sort of sense of wanting to do something for Sherilyn Shackle, the amazing Sherilyn Shackle, to celebrate what she'd achieved. The desire to want to do something brave in the industry and to make our mark and to raise a load of money for something we passionately believed in became this sort of thing. And then the managing the stakes and the risk there was about us all committing to show up, committing to throw ourselves into lessons, committing to learn, and committing to support each other. And I do think that's the biggest thing. Is I think there's a shared commitment in high stakes, isn't there? Because I think there are individual high stakes a leader. You say, right, I'm going to push for this thing, but then it becomes more than about you. It becomes the business doing something or the team doing something. And I think that's the exciting bit. But on your point, that is managing in the sense that you feel a sense of community all in it together. It's why I like improv actually, because improv itself is high stakes. You're on a stage making stuff up, but you're always with someone else. And so there's this sort of shared symbiotic link in improv of we're together in high stakes. And together we want each other to succeed. We want everything to succeed. And I think true high stakes and true buy-in on high stakes is there's no room for politics. There's no room for sort of, I'm in it, I'm not in it, you're in it type thing. I think you have to all be in it together. So the best managed things are a sense of like a project. We're all in it. We're all aligned. We're managing the risk. The goals are clear. We're going to measure the heck out of it. And actually, if you manage it the right high energy way, we can learn a lot and have fun on the journey. And that is itself rewarding, as we said earlier on.
I love that. I want to pick into that a little bit in terms of the high energy. How do you keep the energy going? Because high stakes is not a sprint. Often it's a marathon with sprints in it. There'll be times it's feeling like it's on fire, times when it feels like you're on fire trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
Any tips or practical hows, Pete, that you've learned for yourself and for your team on that energy management piece?
Yeah, I think yeah, it's interesting with the improv one. I gave comic relief. I definitely didn't do that very well. Some certain burnout points on that one, particularly at the end of it. I was like, golly, I've now got to do a show, and I'm literally exhausted from trying to sort the insurance out and where people can hang their coats. So I probably didn't manage it. I think some of this is back to the the shared, I guess, the shared ownership of, I think, passing the weight of that thing around. So I think, so where did I think went wrong with the comic relief thing is I took so much of it on myself. Yeah. So I felt I carried the high stakesness of we had to do this and I had to sort all these bits out. And therefore, it's that I think was the mistake I made there, because then the energy was exhausting of me, and I enjoyed it, but I probably enjoyed it less. So what would I do differently, and what did I do? In Boots' example, is it was very much around, yes, me starting with high stakes, but then it was because we're doing this. It's very clear that I'm accountable for the overall piece, driving it with the business, but my team was delivering a campaign. The business was delivering a new set of propositions. There was new content coming in stores. Finance was supplying the money. We had to, the stores teams were getting ready for the camp, so everyone had a sense. So the energy was different because it felt like it was called Project Phoenix, what we launched, and actually that was a really exciting moment because it was literally the phoenix from the flames. Everyone got behind this idea that this is a phoenix moment, and then it became this resurgence of this brand, and then the energy was I guess driven by a bigger group. So I felt the pressure of it, the sense of I'm newly in, this thing's got to work, but it was shared. And that was the difference. The difference with the comic relief was I kept too much of it to myself, and that's what I do definitely differently compared to the Boots example.
Thank you. So coming to the mic drop moment now, Pete, as I call it, if I had to restrict you, and I'm going to only giving us one piece of practical advice, but it's very much targeted at your fellow C-suite leader. Okay. What one piece of practical advice around how to successfully navigate high stakes would you give when you can only give one, the one you think is the most impactful or important or whatever you put around it?
So for me, I think it's about influence. I think was the biggest thing. I think it is this bit of not being on your own. I think so. So because it starts with you and it starts with the seed of an idea. But I think think really hard about who you can bring on the journey with you. There's a great TED talk I like from years ago about there's someone on a hill on their own dancing.
Yeah, the
I've seen
man.
it. And then eventually one person joins them, and then more people, and then everyone's dancing. And I think that for me is very powerful. Of sort of sometimes you have to be the first person dancing, and it feels uncomfortable. But if you get other people to join you, then more and more people. So I think that for me is the analogy of think about who's going to join the dance with you, get them involved, build a movement out of it, and then I think the high stakes become more about team and community and about other people working that through. So that's and then a connected point with that is knowing your strengths and weaknesses. So in any high stakes stuff, particularly if you're driving change in a business, then you're not a Swiss Army knife as a CMO. You can't do every single role. So knowing what you're good at. I mean, I know I can deliver high performing campaigns that connect and help businesses sell and grow, but I can't do all the operational stuff like making sure that all the stock's in store or our staff are ready in the shops or the websites. Right. So actually having people doing that and knowing who to connect with, that's really important. So yeah, it's definitely about the buy-in, bringing people with you, and knowing your limitations, knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
Pete, you've given us so much generous advice there and wisdom, and you've got me really thinking. I'm thinking, an improv course sounds very exciting. So I think you should keep me informed if you're doing anything like that, because it sounds exciting and different. And I think we all need a bit more improv in this Zoom scheduled world that we live in, don't we?
Well, I think we do. It's an amazing skill, because I think the biggest thing I've learned, Sally, is around it fuels creativity. As I say, if people are listening to this or reading about it, you don't need to be naturally funny. You don't need to be a comedian. It's just about being able to form ideas in your head. It's like a lost art I think we lose when we get out of being a child. And it's been lovely going back and playing again and creating again without a script.
I think, again, that word you've just given us very organically, play. We shouldn't overlook that in high stakes, because there's all the science, isn't there, around cortisol and serotonin. And if you want to be innovative and brave, you've got to be able to be playful as well, because that comes from curiosity.
I completely agree. That really matters. It really matters. Yeah, and actually, I don't think it's wrong to talk about being playful in the executive context. I think often we think we have to be so serious as exec members because it's just a serious thing. And actually, I still think you can be very serious as in serious about a business and business succeeding, but also enjoy and have fun and create a great culture in a team. You don't need to be, you're not a bunch of robots, processing spreadsheets. You're human beings, and therefore those relationships and connections really matter. And I think for me, if I look back to the executive team in Boots when Seb James ran it, it was exactly like that. Seb created that community where it was a fun, dynamic environment. You felt the responsibility to really deliver, but you had a lot of fun with it and created great camaraderie. It wasn't like a bunch of bean counters run the business. It was like an organic, amazing, creative experience. It was lovely, wonderful. He's a great leader.
As are you. So thank you so much for coming and being part of the How of High Performance. My brain is literally chewing away on all those lovely nuggets. So I really am grateful. Thank you so much, Pete.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ooh. Yeah, that was great, Pete.
Thank you too. That's great. No, you got me thinking about stuff. Actually, I was improvising obviously as I went along with that, and actually, it's that's really good conversation, Sally. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.